Hello dear Ronins, welcome to Ronin Hood. Today it will be about omote and fiber. Goza omote and mugen dachi are like straw versus leather. With mugen dachi there is more density, there is more weight for less volume. The fiber of mugen dachi doesn't have any tolerance for bad angles of cut. Because of weight, it scratches badly or directly goes into the floor like a potatoes bag. It is really impressive how the fiber is so strong, like omote bodybuilder, but without taking any volume for such mass and density. This is John Lee omote, and the omote before was the mugen dachi. Mugen dachi is recognized as one of the best in the world for competition, and there is no the same fibers. The fiber of the mugen dachi is smaller and take off so much better water. It's more dense, there is more density, it's really a different feeling. So now we will try with the Ronin Dojo Pro number 19 with that different kind of omote. This is omote John Lee. So we will speak first about the John Lee omote. This is the same omote that you can find in US in Southern Armory that we call goza omote. They get a thicker fiber, and I think they are better for beginners because even without rolling with a wood pan stick, you will have a omote that is easy to cut with a 1060 carbon steel. And if you make mistakes of angle, you will have a nice moment of cutting for a beginner. One thing that is really interesting is that it's easier with the John Lee omote than with the mugen dachi. So it's interesting because I thought it will be the opposite. So that's my first impression. With rolling goza omote with wood pine stick, you will decrease the density, so it will be easier with a goza omote than if you are cutting with a rolling omote as the Japanese way, the traditional way, without wood pine stick, because even with a goza omote it will be more dense because no space inside of the diameter of the rolled omote. Goza omote, they are really nice and they are really easy to cut with a 1060 or 1095. They get a thick fiber, and the thick fiber is really easy to cut but take more time to absorb water. This is the inconvenience of the goza omote. From my understanding and knowledge, you can find the goza omote in Southern Armory in US. You can find the goza omote in KATANA land in Dutchland because they sell products from Southern Armory in Europe in KATANA land, point DI. And you can find goza omote on histofield.com, katanasamurai.com. The only thing that will change its size, you have a longer, so you have the height and the width of the omote, and it will change between Katana Land and histofield.com. And you have the same in Southern Armory. You have 39 inches of width, or you have 46 inches of width. Goza omote are really interesting, and I think they will give more motivation to beginners in dojo for tameshigiri cutting test because they are more easy to cut, and even they take 24 hours, 36 hours to be well full of water. They are really nice and they are really easy, I think, to cut with a correct angle of beginner. And the other thing is, the other inconvenience is the size, because they are sometimes too long for the for your container. Most of the container in Europe are not longer than 1 meter, and sometimes, especially if you buy some goza omote on Katana land, they are longer and you will need to use the big container even for 6 or 12 omotes, and I think it's a little bit sad because it wastes too much water and it takes too much space. So I think the size of 90 centimeters is really important for goza omote or omote that is more dense, like the mugen dachi omote, that are really good but more difficult to cut. For size, are really the best, I think, because always 90 centimeters of height and always, of course, 1 meter 80 centimeters of width. This is the regular size, and because it doesn't change, you won't waste some water or space container for nothing. So I think it's really interesting. Mugen dachi, omote are really good, but they are really dense. They are really dense because they have a thinner fiber of straw, and it's like a chain mail with armor of knights. A chain mail is more effective, is more hard when there is a thinner interlacing. And here it's exactly the case, because with the Mugen dachi omote, the fiber is so thin and so well tight interlacing that you have an object that keeps so well water that it's really easy. So it doesn't allow any mistake of angle when you cut, and it has to be really well cut with the correct angle of cut, not the correct angle of your edge, but also the correct angle of cut if you don't want the omote flip in the air and don't allow you to make the second cut. The other thing is, of course, you need to have a 1095, like I said on the review before, Ronin Dojo Pro versus Johnny Practical. Of course, because of density, we talk about it during that episode. And here it's more to talk about the fiber, to understand how dense it is and which type of omote you can use for your level of practice, where you are on your journey of cutting in tameshigiri. And I really think if you don't have really precise angles and you are not confirmed or up as a cutter, I think it's not interesting to cut with Mugen dachi, because they are really good product, but they need a really precise cutter and a good sword. I don't think it's interesting to cut with a bad sword, a cheap first price sword. I think it's omote that is made, in my opinion, for a good sword between 500 and 1,200 euros, a middle class sword, between a good practical and a middle class sword, because it doesn't allow mistake of angles of the edge and mistake of angle of the cut. So it's a really, really good tatami mat. Not so easy to find in Europe. So you can find it on 9 cycle, and you can find it on KATANA land. This is really easy to prepare. I prefer preparing with Mugen dachi than goza omote, because it takes less space and it takes water quickly. All the cuts, all the way of practicing has to be really precise. So it changed a little bit the experience. And on these pictures, most of the pictures with Mugen dachi fiber you can see are taken with a Japanese way of rolling. There were not wood pine stick used for rolling. Thank you, dear Ronins, for having watched this episode. I hope you liked it. You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok to see my special training. Stay focused, mind sharp and body healthy, and see you soon for a new episode on Running Hood.